Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. Well, St. Louis has been highlighted here recently with the FBI is going to increase agents in St. Louis after Senator Eric Schmitt secures funding. So that makes you ask the question, while President Trump is trying to defund many of our governmental agencies, our alphabet agencies, why did Senator Eric Schmitt get extra funding for more FBI agents in St. Louis? Is St. Louis possibly turning into Chicago with its crime and violence, or is it something else? Well, let's give you the backstory on Senator Eric Schmitt. He's a Republican, and if you remember, during Governor Mike Parsons' tenure as the governor of Missouri, he is the one who selected Eric Schmitt to be the Missouri Attorney General. And remember, St. Louis City is a blue city, but the state of Missouri is red. So after Eric Schmitt became the Attorney General, he leaves and becomes a U.S. Senator. And then who took his place as the Missouri Attorney General? Andrew Bailey. Well, we know here recently, Andrew Bailey as the Missouri Attorney General, he went after St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner, got her removed from her post as a St. Louis City Attorney and prosecuting attorney. And then Andrew Bailey went after, or has gone after, our sheriff, St. Louis City Sheriff Alfred Montgomery. He's been indicted. And then he also went after, or has gone after, Dr. Sam Page, the St. Louis County Executive, who's also Democrat. Mind you, Andrew Bailey is Republican. Andrew Bailey decided to leave here recently as the Missouri Attorney General, and now he is going to take the post as the co-deputy director of the FBI. So Senator Eric Schmitt, Republican, secures funding or more funding for more FBI agents in St. Louis. Simultaneously, Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey decides that he's leaving his post here in mid to late September, and he's going to be the co-deputy director of the FBI. All of this with the feds. But why did they pick St. Louis? Well, St. Louis has a strong history with politics, military, and defense. So, prime example, George Bush II, who was the president, the son, his brother, Bucky Bush, has been living in St. Louis over 40 years. He has an investment firm in Clayton called Bush O'Donnell. So there is an actual Bush relative that has been living in St. Louis. Secondarily, you have Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who is married to a Danforth. And we all should know that the Danforths, the family, have been involved with McDonnell Douglas, Boeing. You're talking about airplane defense contracts. You're talking about the Danforths and their relationship with Washington University. That even though Boeing has moved to Seattle, Boeing still has a heavy seat here in St. Louis. And as you all know, here again, they make defense airplanes, commercial airplanes. Right now, Boeing is on strike with GKN as we speak. And some of the other caveats, don't forget that the national medical records for the 4 chambers of our military used to be at Goodfellow and Highway 70. Now it's moved up at Page and 170. So the national medical records for the Army, the Marines, the Navy, and the Air Force right here in St. Louis. And you have a $10 billion NGA geospace defense agency that is being built right at Cass and Jefferson. That is going to change the entire dynamics of that area. We're talking about regentrification, the JVL and the VL. So we're talking from going, I believe, from 10th and Cass west all the way to Kings Highway. That dynamic is going to change as far as the color of the residents. There is going to be regentrification. There also are rumors and innuendo that Vashon High School, which is right there on Cass, does not own the property, and that when their lease is up, that those students are going to be out of there. And I'm sure as they regentrificate the JVL and the VL, when you have two black historic schools west of the Mississippi, Vashon High School and Sumner High School, those entire dynamics are going to look a lot different once that NGA geospace agency is fully enacted. Those dynamics are going to change that whole area. The government is not building a $10 billion agency there under the auspices that there will be any chaos or disruption. Vashon will possibly turn into a completely different school. And then they're talking about possibly sending those kids from Vashon to Beaumont. The other part that you have that's in the national news, so you got NGA, the feds, state, city police, they're not going to let anything go wrong with that entire development there, right there at Cass and Jefferson. The other part is that you're seeing now on the news is all about this new issues with redistricting for more Republican seats. So you got a lot going on. As I say to you all the time, St. Louis City is blue, but the state of Missouri is red. So even in this redistricting, you're starting to see the chess game that's being played to even have more Republican seats. And even back to the Danforths, the other piece, so you have Bucky Bush that lives here, George Bush's brother. He has Bush O'Donnell investment firm, but you also have to know that the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is married to a Danforth. Yes, indeed. So there are some heavyweights and some real dynamics that are playing out in the St. Louis and the state of Missouri area. And now, as I said, the FBI is going to increase agents in St. Louis after Senator Schmitt secures funding. So we have to ask the question, why is that? The FBI's regional office in St. Louis, which covers the eastern Missouri and parts of central Missouri, received funding to increase its staffing in St. Louis with the support of Missouri Republican Senator Eric Schmitt. St. Louis is getting one of the largest infusions per capita of full-time agents and intelligence personnel in the country, according to an announcement from Schmidt's office. The goal of sending more agents to the St. Louis field office is to increase the FBI's capacity to fight violent crime. So are they worried about St. Louis turning into Chicago to a certain degree? What is really going on? I think part of the increase of the feds or more numbers of federal agents being here has an alignment with that new NGA geospace area right at Cass and Jefferson, in my opinion. Violent crime is up, but they are trying to make sure that St. Louis is secure for the upcoming things that many people don't know about. St. Louis has often been classified as one of the most dangerous cities. And statistically, that has shown to be possibly true. Even a couple of weeks ago, you had a group of young kids that carjacked an Uber and a Lyft driver late at night on the north side of St. Louis. All of those dynamics are going to change. There is a high preponderance of gun violence in St. Louis, and sometimes I think the young people of St. Louis that are committing these crimes are trying to act similarly to Chicago, and the gang violence is at a premium also. Senator Eric Schmitt's announcement also points out the moving to bring more FBI agents to the St. Louis office represents a permanent investment by the Trump administration in St. Louis. Additionally, the move is labeled as the first step in the Trump administration's continued crackdown on crime in Missouri and across the country. Today marks the beginning of a new era of federal-state partnership to promote law and order in St. Louis, Senator Eric Schmitt said in a statement. This permanent investment in St. Louis by the FBI will be coupled with increased multilateral joint agency operations, increasing overall crime fighting capacity and building upon the important work being done on the state level to restore public safety. Earlier this spring, the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department shared new statistics showing a decrease in crime in just the first 3 months in 2025. For the first 3 months of 2025, overall crime is down 28% compared to this time last year and down nearly 50% compared to the same time frame in 2023. The city of St. Louis has seen a continued decline in violent crime, with the lowest number of year-to-date homicides recorded since 2025. The department's homicide clearance rate currently stands at 100%. You know, when they talk about these statistics, whether it's Washington, D.C., Chicago, all of them are saying the same thing, that crime has decreased year after year. Compared to what? And if you are living in certain pockets of these urban cities, crime has not gone down, crime has increased. So I think that there are manipulations in the statistics about violence and crime and homicides that are not actually true. If you talk to people that live in North City, Deep South City, crime is at the same level, if not higher, than it has been before. It also says the early spring quarterly report also shows homicides in St. Louis City at 23. In 2024, it was 40. In 2023, it was at 36. And in 2022, it was at 37. In 2021, there was 43. It's not clear how visible the FBI agents will be in St. Louis. It's not known if federal agents will be seen at every crime scene or have a presence at large public gatherings such as the Cardinals baseball games, the Blues hockey games, City SC matches, or other events such as concerts, theater performances, and fall festivals across the city. They're saying the FBI's mission is simple: keep America safe. That means putting more agents on the streets and more resources into communities that need it most, FBI Director Kash Patel said in a statement. This investment in St. Louis is about action, not politics, and making sure our agents are shoulder to shoulder with local law enforcement to take violent criminals off the streets.